Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapchitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासा आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्री गुरु दीनतारिणम्. Okay, so welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class, morning speakers group. Today we are reading from Canto 3, 21st chapter, the very last verse. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atapi pruche tvam vira yadartam tvam ihagata tad vyayam nirvalikena pratipada mahe rudah. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In spite of all this, I ask you, O valiant king, the purpose for which you have come here. Whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When a guest comes to a friend's house, it is understood that there is some special purpose. Kardama Muni could understand that such a great king as Swayambhuva, although traveling to inspect the condition of his kingdom, must have had some special purpose to come to his hermitage. Thus, he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desire. Formerly, it was customary that sages used to go to the kings and the kings used to visit the sages in their hermitages. Each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. This reciprocal relationship is called Bhakti Kriya. There is a nice verse describing the relationship of mutual benefit, mutual beneficial interest between the Brahmana and the Kshatriya. Kshatram Dvijatvam. Kshatram means the royal order and Dvijatvam means the Brahminical order. The two were meant for mutual interest. The royal order would give protection to the Brahmanas for the cultivation of spiritual advancement in society. And the Brahmanas would give their valuable instruction to the royal order on how the state and the citizens can gradually be elevated in spiritual perfection. Thus ends Bhaktivedanta purport of the third canto, 21st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversations between Manu and Kardama. It's such a wonderful chapter. So many glorious things have happened in this chapter. And then comes this, the conclusion for this chapter in this particular purport. Let's take a quick look at what happened in this chapter. So it all started with Vidura's inquiries about Manu's dynasty. And then the description of Manu's dynasty comes up. Priyavrata, Uttanapada, and so on and so forth, all those things. Then, what happens? Kardama, Kardama Muni is doing a 10,000 years, austerity, tapas. At the end of which, the Lord gives his darshan to Kardama. When the Lord comes and gives his darshan, it's so magnificent. But the description of the Lord himself is no different from what we have seen when the Lord appears in front of the 4 Kumaras. It's very similar. He's dressed similarly, everything, except the circumstances, the context is different. The Lord is having this extended discussion with Kardama Muni. Such a wonderful opening scene, Then what happens? Kardama Muni is now starting to pray to the Lord. He says, the eyes are successful only upon seeing you. So these are material eyes. How can we see the Lord? It's not very, it's not possible unless the Lord himself permits and he removes the curtain that is there in between us. Then the less intelligent worship you for material things. I too desire a suitable wife. So he is very clear about what he wants from the Lord. He says, I want to serve you, but I'm, however, bound by the orders from my father, which is Brahma. So by his orders, I have to procreate and I've accepted it. So what I'm doing, I am like all other less intelligent people, I'm also approaching you for a material desire. Then he says material desire leads to bondage, surrender to you leads to liberation. Time doesn't affect devotees. Okay. Then he says, you created this material world for jivas enjoyment and to cause detachment in them by realizing you. So, the purpose of the creation is so that the jivas can enjoy, basically purusharthas, the 4 purusharthas. The living entities go through one after the other, these purusharthas, sometimes together also. But the ultimate purushartha is to achieve moksha, which is attaining the Supreme Lord. Then the Lord speaks to Kardama. Such a nice thing. Where do you see these things? The Lord speaking to the devotees and the devotees speaking to the Lord, and in such loving exchanges. We have seen the same thing happen even earlier, like I said, in the, the 4 Kumaras. We saw that happening. Earlier to that, we know Narada and the Lord were speaking. That's also there. We also saw one other type of conversation between the Lord and Hiranyaksha. That was also there, but there it was not a loving exchange. It was more, about show of strength and power and all of that. But these ones, his interactions with the devotees are so nice. So the Lord is saying, my devotees' desires are never frustrated. This is very similar to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. My devotee never perishes. Once he gives a word or once he decides to do something, my devotee, I will ensure that it happens. Krishna says that. And the same thing here, the Lord is saying. You can see this consistency in Shastra. Wherever there are these statements, they're very, very similar. All you have to do is put them side by side. You'll see how consistent they are. They're not arbitrary. It's not being said just because it has to be said. It's not dramatic or anything like that. Modern day, movies, scripts, web series, all of that happens. They write things because they make a big impact. There's no consistency between the previous episode and the current episode. However, with Shastras, it's not like that. They're documenting the Lord and the devotees' interaction. And then the Lord also says, because he had a specific desire, he says, Manu will offer his daughter to you. You will beget 9 daughters and me as a son out of her. So the Lord is very clear. He is giving the full roadmap. This is how it is going to happen. Tomorrow morning, Manu and his wife and Manu, his wife Shatrupa, and his daughter Devahuti are going to arrive here. They are going to offer their daughter. And in other words, the Lord is also saying, please accept, Devahuti. That is what the Lord is saying. And then finally, you will attain me. So after all of this happens, then you will attain me. So this is almost like what happens with Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj has the, he sees the Lord physically in front of him. In fact, the Lord touches Dhruva Maharaj. And then what happens? Because Dhruva Maharaj has started the entire process with a material desire, that is given to him so he can fulfill it and then he can go back. Very same thing is happening here with Kardama Muni. Because there was this material desire, whether it was his own or whether it came from Brahma, doesn't really matter. So he said, after the 9 daughters and the son is born, you can attain me. And so after that, the Lord leaves. Even the description of how the Lord is leaving is so wonderful. If the Lord is actually, flying away into the sunset, and the Garuda's wings are gently swaying, and Kardama is looking at this entire scene, Kardama Muni, and it is described that the flapping of the wings of the Garuda is the basic tune from which Samaveda was derived. Such beautiful scenario. The same scenarios have been copied over and over again in so many of the human endeavors. You take any Western movie where the cowboy at the end of the movie, what is he doing? He's riding away into the sunset. Where are they taking it from? Where does it come from? It comes from here. So the Lord lives, and after that, the description of Bindu Sarovara is given. Actually, Swayambhu Manu, Shatrupa Mata and Devahuti. All of these are coming down in their chariot. While they're coming down, they're seeing at the Bindu Sarovara. Bindu Sarovara is located in Jammu and Kashmir. The beauty of that place is being described. So wonderful. So after that, Kardama Muni receives Manu, King Manu, and what he does, there is exchange of respect, and there is, this inquiry, how are you, what is going on, all of that, and after all of that happens, finally comes this particular verse. We'll read the translation of the verse once again to get back into the context. Kardama Muni is saying, in spite of all of this, that conversation that they have had, receiving the other thing that we need to see is, here an example is being set. If you read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and you read Nectar of Instruction, instructions are given on how to receive a guest, a Vaishnava receiving another Vaishnava. How to do that? You bring them in, you offer them a suitable, place to sit. If there is no suitable place to sit, clean the floor, put a mat. If you don't have a mat, then clean the floor and ask the guest to sit there. And after that, you offer them suitable, refreshments. If you don't have anything else, you can give milk. If you don't even have milk, you can give them fresh water. And then inquire pleasingly. And then exchange. That is what is being said. Here you can see all of that happening 2 times over. Once when the Lord comes, and now when Swayambhu Manu comes. So again, see this, how the Shastras are there and how the Shastras are, you can see the implementation of the Shastras in Srimad Bhagavatam. Every single story, every single chapter that we are reading, you can see this behavior, and the behavior is not deviated. The behavior is deviated either by a demon or by somebody under some sort of an influence. Otherwise, generally they all follow what is laid down. And here also that is the same thing. He has taken care of the guest and now he's asking. And Prabhupada is actually explaining, sorry, I said I'll read this. In spite of all of this, I ask you, O valiant king, the purpose for which you have come, whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. So see the open-mindedness of the, so he's saying, you come here, whatever it is, in fact, it's not that Kardama Muni doesn't know what the Lord told him. The Lord had already told him the entire roadmap. So and so is going to come, his daughter is going to be offered to you, all of that. But then Lord can wish something, but the person may not wish the same thing. You do not know. So don't jump the gun. And here, what is Kardama Muni saying? Whatever is your wish, if you ask me to do something else, I'm going to do that also, because we are cooperating for the purpose of the Lord. I will do whatever it is, I'll carry out. So you can see the highest etiquette of Vaishnava Dharma here. Prabhupada is explaining it to us so that we do not miss that point. When a guest comes to a friend's house, it is understood that there is some special purpose. Kardama Muni could understand that such a great king Swayambhu, although traveling to inspect the condition of his kingdom, must have had some special purpose to come to his hermitage. Thus, he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desires. So, Prabhupada is further saying, it was customary for sages to go to the kings, and the kings used to visit the sages' hermitage. And we see this throughout the stories that we read in Puranas and in all the other texts. One such instance is when Vishwamitra goes to King Dashratha's court. Why does he go? He is being troubled by Maricha, Subahu and Maricha. And because he's being troubled by Subahu and Maricha, what does he do? He go to King Dashratha's court and he requests for protection. Now see the interesting part. In his past life, Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya. And he had all the powers of destroying the two demons by himself. He didn't have to go to Dashratha. Okay. Now, as a Brahmana, Vishwamitra decided that he wants to become a Brahmana. He gave up his Kshatriya, vritti, and he did a lot of austerities, became a Brahmana. Even as a Brahmana, he has so much of power in himself, he could have destroyed the two demons. But he doesn't do that. Why? Because it is the social structure of Varnashrama Dharma, where the Kshatriya is supposed to protect and the Brahmana is supposed to be pious and needs to do spiritual activities and enlighten the society with the spiritual activities. The Vaishya is supposed to be the businessman, and the Shudra is supposed to be the glue that binds the entire society together. That is how this separation is. So Vishwamitra, now that he is a Brahmana, he decides that he is not going to use his powers. Rather than that, he will stay within his confines of Varnashrama Dharma and do it. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says to Arjuna, your duty as a Kshatriya is to vanquish the enemies. Your duty is not to run away from the field and take sannyasa. Your duty is not to go and become a Gruhastha. Everyone's duty is, everyone's responsibility is to take up their duty in the ashrama that they are and complete it. Particularly when we are in the material realm, we should not transcend, or we should not try to cross and do everyone else's duties. We should do our duty. And that is exactly what is being shown here. That is why Vishwamitra goes and requests Dashratha, and Dashratha, reluctantly obliges. It's not that everyone would want to do everything. Dashratha is willing to go by himself. He said, I'm going to come and I'm going to help you. But Vishwamitra doesn't want that. He wants Rama and Lakshmana to come. And, what happens? The king is now almost, he's like distressed. He doesn't know what to do. Then what he does? He goes to Vasishtha. Vasishtha is the chief priest for Dashratha. So Vasishtha gives him wise counsel. Who is Vasishtha? Vasishtha is a sage, again a Brahmin, and then he has this wisdom. Because of his wisdom, what he says? He says, with Vishwamitra, you can send Ramachandra and Lakshmana. They will be safe. They will take care of whatever is going to happen. And that is how Dhritarashtra becomes specified and he fulfills. You can see how the Varnashrama Dharma is interacting with each other and able to achieve the goal. And the common goal here is the wish of the Lord. If the wish of the Lord is not honored, the will of the Lord is not executed, then the Varnashrama system will collapse. Or the other way around, if the Varnashrama system collapses, then the will of the Lord will not be executed. And in fact, that is what Arjuna expresses in the second chapter. He talks about Varnashankara. When Varnashankara is very, very, it starts taking over the world, like everywhere you see that population of Varnashankara grow, then the Varnashrama system has collapsed and the Lord's wishes are not being fulfilled. The Lord's orders are not being fulfilled. That is where it is going to take us to. So here, between Vishwamitra and Dasharatha, finally, the Bhakti Kriya gets engaged. The same thing, Kardama Muni is accepting to do whatever Manu wants to. In another way of looking at it, if you look at the Varnashrama Dharma, what happens is we have the four Varnas, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. And here Prabhupada actually talks about Kshatram Dijatvam, where the Brahminical order and the Kshatriya order each are protecting each other. But it's not just those two that's given to exemplify what's happening. Let us say, the common example that is given, the Brahmana is the head, the Kshatriyas are the arms, the feet are, the rest of the body is a Vaishya and the feet are basically the Shudra. So without the feet carrying the body around, the head cannot go anywhere. So if you have to go somewhere, it is the feet that has to carry you. If you have to be defended, it is the hands that is going to defend you. But if you have to think, it is the head that is going to do the thinking. So all of these are interacting. That doesn't mean the feet are any less important. If there's a thorn that goes into the feet, the head, which is the Brahmana, thinks, hey, this feet is a Shudra, I don't want to help it. It doesn't think like that. What it does, immediately, it reacts, it gets the particular thorn removed, and if it's required, it will attend to the wound. Otherwise, it will keep moving forward. So, even in the body, all the organs act together the same way. In Varnashrama Dharma, everything needs to act together. And here also, it's being explained by Prabhupada that we need to cultivate the Varnashrama Dharma, and without cultivating the Varnashrama Dharma, as a society, we will not be able to achieve what the Supreme Lord wants, and even as individuals, we will not be able to achieve what we want. I will stop there. Please forgive me if I made any mistakes. If anyone has any questions or any discussions, please bring it up. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Nice class, sweet flow. So I was just thinking when you mentioned, when we were reading this translation, so Kardama Muni knows what the purpose of
Yes.
Manu came. But
Correct.
you put it very nice way. I mean, Lord, desires something and then we may think different way, right? So,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it will happen whatever Lord is wishing here. So, but yeah,
Correct.
from the, what do you call? Etiquette perspective, of course, he is asking. So I was just thinking about it. Yeah, Lord desires something and living entity might do something else. So that's why he's not jumping and he's trying to clarify. So
Yeah, Prabhuji, you're right. And I was actually, when I was reading it, what came to my mind is, if at all, we know all these things, sometimes they make it into TV serials, movies, and other things. How this scene would have been enacted. The way the current day directors and others think, they would have created a song right in front before that. Even before, like a romantic song or something like that, taking away the spirituality completely. But here, even Kardama Muni is not thinking romantically and otherwise. He knows he has a duty, and according to duty, he's going. He's not running away. He's not letting his mind take control. He's using his intelligence, and he's, somebody who's done 10,000 years of tapasya, so he has so much control. So thank you, Prabhuji. That's a good point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavad pranams. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Wonderful class, Prabhu. I like the way you started with about the need and importance of a reciprocal relationship. That was very good. And you really did a fantastic job in recapping the entire chapter. That's also good. Prabhu, I have a question. In today's world, like when we talk about brahmanas, it's the first thing that comes is in the mind in the contemporary world is about about their particular food habits, that they are restricted to eat meat, but that's not the case in today's thing. I also understand Kshatriyas in those days, Kshatriyas are allowed to eat meats. How about the Vaishyas and Shudras, Prabhu? Can you help on that part?
Prabhuji, if I understand properly, Brahmanas would always have sattvic food, and most of the kings that are being referred in the Shastras are sattvic kings. They're very, very, they're practicing what you call Kshatriyas, but they're very spiritually inclined. So they follow the rules and regulations of Sattva, even though they are passionate by themselves. But there are other kings who do indulge in, meat and other things. When it comes to Vaishyas, Vaishyas are second to Brahmanas, Prabhuji, in their practice. In fact, in the current world, I find more Vaishyas being more Brahminical than, pardon me for saying this, than the actual Brahmanas. They are even today very strict about certain things. And I appreciate them for doing that. For the Shudras, there is no restriction of that sort. Of course, we don't touch, cow meat or anything like that. Cow slaughter is not encouraged. So nobody in the, Sanatana Dharma touches cow meat. That is how it is, Prabhuji. If you go back at least 300 to 400 years ago, 600 years ago, if you take the Vijayanagara kings, if you look at it, even the way we read about Vijayanagara kings, we are said that these two brothers were roaming around and they saw that there was a lion being chased by a hare. So they decided to establish the kingdom. That is not the true story. There, what happens is the two brothers, Hakaraya and Bukaraya, they approach Vidyaranya. Vidyaranya is a spiritual master for them. Who is Vidyaranya? Vidyaranya is from Sringeri Math. He is the pontiff of Sringeri Math or Mathadisha. And he is the one who gives them the direction where to establish the kingdom, how to establish the kingdom, and he continuously coaches them. And that is how the Bhakti Kriya goes on. That is why they were able to defend South India for such a long time. And if you go back a little more in history, you'll also find Chanakya and Chandragupta. Why did Chandragupta become such a powerful emperor, and how was he able to defend the country for such a long time and Sanatana Dharma for such a long time? That is because Chanakya was his spiritual master. Chanakya was very, very, strict. He was like, as a king, you are who you are. But when you're doing the Raja Dharma, you have to follow rules. There is no deviation that you can take. And it's also, though, Chandragupta followed his guru a lot of times, he would also get into a fight with his spiritual master. And they would have these fights, but still Chandragupta would follow, whatever Chanakya would say. Srila Prabhupada, and even in our Vaishnava lineage, we have a lot of respect to Chanakya. Chanakya Niti is referred multiple times. I don't know if I answered your question, Prabhuji, but
No, you did, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I mean, it's more about the qualitative approach in following the dharma,
yeah.
even though they are Kshatriya or Vaishyas. Thank you for the insight, Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Yes, Prabhuji. So if you don't have any other discussion.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Covering a lot of topics. And also centered around, our particular words. You said Bindu Sarora in the Jammu and Kashmir state.
Yeah, Mataji.
But I remember seeing Bindu Sarora in our Dwarka Yatra. But that is in the Western India, right?
I don't know, Mataji, because when I was reading about Bindu Sarovara in the canto itself, it's explained, it is in the kingdom, it's in the place. I'll find the reference and I'll pass it on.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, but I don't know. That is the only thing I know about. I don't know in Dwaraka and other places Bindu Sarovara is available. That I didn't know, Mataji.
Dwarka Yatra. You were not there in Dwarka Yatra.
No, I wasn't there, Mataji.
I remember somebody else in our in our group mentioned also. I think Govinda Moini Mantaji mentioned seeing Bindu Saravara during the Dwarka Yatra.
Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'll find the reference and I'll pass it on to you, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you. Okay, so if we don't have any other discussions or questions, we'll close the call. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya krupa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namo ananta koti vaishnavabhyo. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.